On September 21st, 2025, we have a solar eclipse coming. That's the second eclipse of this eclipse season. The lunar eclipse was on September 7th, or will be on September 7th. And I covered that in an earlier video. So as I get into this eclipse, I'm gonna, analyze it as always, but I'm also going to be looking at the Aditya symbology of it because I'm teaching those Adityas now. And I want people who are learning that to have the advantage of, learning the Aditya some more while I do this video. The first thing I'm going to do is read the results from The Eagle and the Lark. The Eagle and the Lark is a great little book by Bernadette Brady that talks about these eclipse cycles and has really short, explanations of what to expect in each eclipse cycle. What it says about this one, which started the first eclipse in this cycle was way back, not very far, July 19th, 1917. It's an eclipse cycle that's only 100 years old. It's still in its infancy. It's one of the newer ones. The results she gives is this Sero series appears to be concerned with the bringing to the surface of long-term worries about loved ones, health, or issues to do with paperwork or communication. This could manifest as a worrying piece of news about a loved one or responsibilities with paperwork coming home to roost. Any news will have a sense of destiny or fatedness about it. Now, her basis for that is a Mercury, Saturn, Neptune conjunction and the new moon being on the Venus, Pluto midpoint. Okay, and I agree with that interpretation. I think that'll be a part of this eclipse cycle. Sometimes, on rare occasions, there's an interpretation she makes that I don't really agree with. And in that case, I found because the eclipse cycle start date was calculated incorrectly, probably due to the lack of really good computer software to do the job back then when this book was written. But I'm going to analyze this eclipse, along more lines than that and try to bring about a more full interpretation. But I do think the results she gives do align with what's in this chart. Okay. Now, on my screen here, I have two charts. The inner eclipse is the eclipse that's happening. The chart for the eclipse that's happening, that's at 2:11:50 p.m. Washington, D.C. time. And the sun and moon conjunction is happening at the very end of Tropical Virgo, right around 28, 29 degrees. That's going to put it at about, say 4 or 5 degrees sidereal Virgo. And with Aditya, it's going to put it in Twashta Aditya, who's the divine architect, the builder. So if you have anything in that area, at the end of Tropical Virgo, maybe even at the very beginning of Libra, at the very, very first couple degrees, or anywhere in Virgo for that matter, you'll feel some influences of this eclipse. The closer to something, the more likely it's going to be, you'll feel it very strongly. So these are the people, have to be more concerned about this and tune into it. You want to make sure and find out which eclipse is hitting you more strongly so you can analyze which eclipse is more important to you so you don't get confused about thinking something is one eclipse, have expectations for it, and then have it turn out a different way than expected because you were paying attention to the wrong eclipse. The outer circle here is the original eclipse in the cycle. That's the eclipse we have to look at to see what is this eclipse really representing. And that fell at the end of Cancer, at 25 Cancer, tropically. That's not as important. The eclipse that we use to determine if you're getting hit is the one in the current eclipse at 28 Virgo. So, in this eclipse, we have a Pluto conjunction in the same sign as that eclipse. So yes, there'll be some breaking down of some things. Expect to let go of some things. Not in a really serious or heavy fashion, though, simply because Pluto is so far away, but they are in the same sign. And I'm going to interpret this more in the light of the Adityas, where this eclipse is falling in the Indra Aditya. Indra represents the love of self, and Indra is the force in us that lets us really live the true self that we are, really live our life according to who we are, rather than programming or other people's pressures. And whenever we have an eclipse falling in there, as far as a root eclipse, it lets us know that whatever the succeeding eclipse is hitting your chart, there's going to be an element of, all right, I have to do this in a way that I'm really living as myself. This really has to be right for me. It can't be a compromise. It has to reflect what I'm really here to do, who I really am, on a level of being, not on an emotional level of I need this and I need this to feel okay, but really on a level of being the shiny, radiant being you are. What does that mean? Okay. So this eclipse that we're going to have is going to have this idea. Okay, you need to get more clear in respect to are you living as yourself? And it's not easy in this eclipse. There's a lot of stuff in the way because in this eclipse we have this Neptune, Mercury, Saturn conjunction. And even though they're on different signs, they're within 8 degrees of each other. They're right across the border from each other. And so I'm going to consider this a very valid influence in the eclipse, a very felt aspect of the eclipse. So Mercury there is like, okay, I've got options. Yes, I want to do what's really right for me this time. I'm sick of not doing what's right. And I have some options in front of me and I want to go follow up on those options. And then Neptune saying, yeah, and I can see a lot of potential, but it's not really clear what those potentials are. So there's option. There's, what seems like amazing potential, but it's not really clear. And I really need to go out and explore it, Mercury says. And then Saturn sitting on Mercury saying, too bad you don't get to. Okay. The problem is we got this Saturn there restricting, limiting, telling Mercury, oh, you can't do it. For some reason, you can't. So you get this option. You want to explore it. You want to see if it's right for you. And that'll be relevant to the house that the present eclipse is falling in, which is the one at 28 Virgo. So I don't consider this an easy eclipse because of that Saturn sitting on there. If it wasn't for that Saturn, it'd be a time of great exploration, like something you can really explore, like discovering a new country type exploration. Because we're dealing with options that have potentials you haven't seen before. And then Saturn saying, no, nope, it's really not the right time. And it might feel like a real curse. What do you mean I can't go experience that option? Why is it there? But then I don't get to go see it. Well, when something's there, but you don't get to go explore it, figure it out, try it, it's there to bring about a self-reflection in yourself. Because you're stuck. It's like if you're in prison, you want to go do something, you want to go on an adventure, but you don't get to. All you can do is reflect and reflect what's the meaning of that adventure? What do I hope to get out of that adventure? Why do I need that adventure? And that's what we kind of have to do with this eclipse if it's hitting you, is just reflect, why would I want that option? Why is that option appealing to me? Because whenever Saturn's there, it means you have a lot to learn about what your motivations are for something. So instead of just going and doing it, we sometimes don't get to do it, but then we're dwelling on it, thinking on it, contemplating it, and that can bring up a lot of personal truths in ourselves and a lot of awareness. So that's how you want to use this if you're feeling a roadblock in front of you during this eclipse. And that is going to hold true anytime this eclipse comes along. It's going to come along every 18 years. So the last one was September of 2007 was the last time we had the same eclipse. And at that point, it fell, if I remember right. I'll get back to that in a minute. Okay. Actually, but it actually fell in around the middle of Tropical Virgo, 18 years ago. So you might reflect back and see if you dealt with that eclipse during that time. The good news is that we have Jupiter over here making a nice little aspect to the Saturn, Mercury, Neptune conjunction. So you're good. You get a little bit of insight. You get some information that helps you. You have your innate wisdom to rely on, stumble across the truth, and it'll help you deal with this situation and make it not so heavy. Okay. And something good will come from it. End of the day, if Jupiter's there, something good that comes from it. And so you might, as the eclipse lives, you might go, okay, That was a little tough, a little frustrating because, Saturn was putting the brakes on what I wanted to figure out and go explore. But some good came from it. And so I can consider it a decent experience. But I don't consider this the easiest eclipse cycle of them all. All right. The urge during this eclipse cycle over here, we have Uranus making an inconjunct aspect, a 30-degree aspect to the sun moon conjunction. And remember, this um, eclipse is in Indra. It's like, I want to live as myself. I want to do what's right for me, which is also what Uranus is all about. So that impulse is going to be really, really strong during this time. Um, and you really want to give some value to Saturn being there rather than saying, what the hell? Why is Saturn there screwing everything up? Trust in gods, trust in life, and say, Saturn's there for a reason. Okay. Have all this impulse. Saturn's there for a reason. Maybe it's not right. Maybe if I went and explored it, I would just fall off a cliff and land on spikes and sharp boulders, and that it wouldn't really be right. And so Saturn's actually there saving me. Or, maybe it's just not the right time. Maybe you still have to figure some things out in yourself. And then it'll be the right time for that, and the brakes will come off. So trust that Saturn's putting the brakes on for a reason. All right. But that urge is going to be really, really strong because of Uranus over here to really live as yourself. And so what you want to do, you want to make the effort to live as yourself, even if that thing you think that you need to go explore or that opportunity that's not quite coming through is what's needed. Well, if Saturn's there, it's not really needed. It's just you think you need it. And so you want to, um, let your imagination run. You want to explore that thing. You want your life to be this way. You want to live this way. Okay, good. That thing came along, help you explore how you want to live your life, what's right for you, the right way to live, the right way to be. Good. Now you can start practicing it without that thing. Maybe that thing just came along to demonstrate to you or to get your mind going and thinking about the possibilities of how you could live that way. Sort of like a catalyst to stimulate you in that direction rather than an actual part. That's also a possibility with this eclipse. So that's the foundation of this eclipse. It's about trying to find out who you are. There's confusion, there's possibility, there's opportunity, but it's blocked and the brakes are on and you have to figure out what's right for you anyway. Okay. Now, the present eclipse, as I mentioned, is falling at 28 degrees of Virgo, tropically speaking. This eclipse is going to be one of the tougher in the cycle because over here opposite the eclipse, we have a Saturn-Neptune conjunction. And Mercury is right here next to the eclipse. They're not conjunct, but they're 6 degrees apart. They're essentially conjunct space-wise. So we have the same pattern emerging. Here we had a Saturn, Mercury, Neptune conjunction at the original eclipse. And now we have a Saturn or a sun moon. We have the Mercury over here, pretty much opposite the Saturn Neptune. We have a similar theme going on. So everything I said about this foundation eclipse, so every time this eclipse hits you, there's going to be an element of that. That element is going to be particularly strong during this eclipse. The options there, the potentials there of Neptune, you can start imagining all this potential, and Saturn saying, nope, not the right time, or maybe not the right thing. You're not going to even know that. You don't even get to figure that one out. What you have to do is think about the things that this option coming into your life is making you entertain. Now, this eclipse falls in Twashta Aditya. And Twashta is the divine architect. He's the builder. And the beautiful thing about Twashta is he favors the mortal being. not a lot of gods favor the mortal being. Some of them are just caring too much for our souls, it seems, sometimes. But Twashta, he works for the mortal being. He's like, I want you guys, yes, to grow spiritually, but I also want you to live a life that your mortal self goes, it was actually worth being here. It wants you to feel that. Twashta is up for that. He wants to make it so your mortal life is worth living, not just your immortal life is worth achieving. And that's one of the wonderful things about this Twashta. He does believe in that, and he doesn't think you can't have a life that you feel good about living, and that you find worth living, and not be spiritual. He wants that for us. And so an eclipse falling in this aditya is always an opportunity to work towards building that life. So it's essentially saying, all right, let's build that life. And this life is founded on Indra, the original eclipse of let's build this life, and it has to be the life that's really right for you. It has to reflect who you are. It can't be based on a bunch of false assumptions. And the fact that there's a Saturn, Neptune, Mercury conjunction in the original eclipse means that this eclipse cycle is always going to require some shedding of wrong ideas you have about yourself so that you can live the right life. And when it happens in Libra, as it is, or not Libra, sorry, in Twashta, as it is in this eclipse cycle, it's about the life you want to build, that your mortal self can feel good in. And this particular eclipse, it's confused. It's got potential. You don't get to explore the potential. You don't get to find out the answers to it. Saturn's frustrating it, and it's going to be frustrating. The good news is we're going to have several more eclipses where the sun or that are falling in this particular aditya still. This isn't the only eclipse we're going to have in this aditya. The ones next spring will have it. So this isn't the only opportunity to build our lives. And that opportunity is frustrated by Saturn. This is the eclipse of getting more clear of the life you need to live to continue living in this world as a mortal being and make it feel worth living. That's what this aditya is all about. Now, other factors that are influencing this, we once again have a very strong Uranus influence, almost an exact 90-degree aspect between Uranus and the eclipse. So the push to really do what's you, to literally live as yourself and not live a life full of lies, it gets really, really strong. So you're going to become more aware of, dang, this isn't right. That's why that thing looks like potential to me. That's why I want that job, that thing, whatever it is that, is coming into your life as an option during this time. And, Uranus is like going to help you get clear on, yeah, this is really how I need to live. This is really, really how I need to build. It's just not going to let you build it right now. It's about getting clarity while you're in this jail of Saturn still. And one thing I also wanted to mention, its eclipses are a solar eclipse, which this is the end of one cycle, beginning of another cycle. So this one is the end of one cycle of how you're living as yourself, what you think is you living the right life for you, and the beginning of another one. So we're beginning a new cycle of, okay, let's live as me. But it's a bit of a frustrated cycle because you can get the vision of it, but you don't get to fully go step into it. And again, that Saturn's doing this so that you can get a greater clarity about what you really want to build. Sometimes being teased by life get you thinking and realize what really you do need to build. So look at this as an opportunity to figure out really, all right, this is really what I need to build. Maybe you'll get an opportunity to build it later as other eclipses continue. But during this eclipse, you're not going to have the answers. It's going to be too confused. There's going to be confusion there. That's going to make it difficult to get clarity on or to move forward with. Now, you might, a solar eclipse is the end of a cycle and the beginning of a new one. What I've talked about so far more has to do with stepping into that new cycle. Okay, I'm going to build this this is the life I want to build. So as a mortal, I can feel like it's worth living here. And I want that based on, who I really am as a more grown up, mature. This is what really, reflects my being. What I just said applies more to the beginning of a new cycle. Solar eclipse is the beginning of a new cycle, but also the end of a new cycle. So what I've talked about so far is this beginning of the new cycle. Now, some people getting hit by this might be impacted more by the ending of a cycle. And anyone hit by this eclipse is also experiencing the ending of a cycle. Sometimes things feel like an ending. Sometimes things feel like a beginning. But every beginning is the ending of something else. And every ending is the beginning of something else. But like I said, sometimes it feels like an ending. Sometimes it feels like a beginning. So for some of you, it'll feel one way. For others, it'll feel the other way. Now, for those who are experiencing more the ending feeling of this eclipse, what you can expect is the things in your life that aren't true to who you really are and which are not right for you to build a life that you can feel good about living could likely disappear. Saturn over here wants to take them away. Neptune over here wants to wash that potential away and even wash that, unrealized potential. The worst thing in life sometimes is unrealized potential, right? You see this potential and you see this potential and you see this potential and it never happens. That can be really frustrating, right? We want to see potential and get closer to that potential every day, move towards it, towards a greater experience of that potential. So when this eclipse hits, whoever it's hitting, you might feel like, okay, I'm sick of, never realizing this potential. There's this potential. I never get to it. I'm not building anything. I'm not really moving forward that way I want to. I don't want this anymore. Or the situation might kick you out and you might have to realize, well, even though I was holding on to that situation and clinging to it, that was because I was, not really thinking about what I really need, what I really wanted to build. And now that that's thrown me out and I'm reflecting and I've stopped crying, I can see like, dang, that wasn't even what I wanted to build. Now I'm going to go build what I really want to build. So those are the type of things you might experience if you're experiencing this from an ending first perspective instead of a building first perspective. All right. Other influences to this eclipse that are prominent. We also have a significant Pluto. It's just, again, 92 degrees away from a perfect aspect, 90-degree aspect to the eclipse. So we have Uranus and Pluto going on. And so this eclipse is really going to change people who it hits. It's really going to turn you around inside out and change you. We have Neptune, Uranus, and Pluto all influencing the eclipse. When we see that, we've got the deepest changes possible. So if you're going to be tagged by this eclipse or the lunar eclipse because Neptune, Uranus, and Pluto were also in relationship then, this eclipse is going to change you on a deeper level. The reason that is because Neptune represents your potential as a being, as a spiritual being, as a being of fulfillment. That's your potential. It's the vision God has for us. And then Uranus comes along and says, all right, let's build up on this potential. Let's build towards that. We're going to add this and add that. Okay, now you're living your potential more fully. Then Pluto comes along and says, all right, there's things that you're carrying with you that are detracting from your potential. You're never going to be living your full potential with that. Then it cuts it off, cuts it out of your life, tears it away, breaks it off. In this eclipse, we got both those things happening. We have Uranus coming along saying, okay, you need this. This is part of you. Now that you have it, you can really live your potential. And Pluto's coming along and saying, no, 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 no. As long as you're carrying this shit around, as long as you think that, believe that, live that, have that, you will not be realizing your potential. So I'm blowing it up. It's gone. Dynamite it. So this eclipse has an incredible capacity to bring out your potential. And the lunar eclipse too. And you might notice during this eclipse, as you deal with your life, that you're realizing different potentials. Maybe you're hitting higher numbers on your job. Maybe the way you're talking to people or relating to people is working better, and you just achieved a little bit more of your potential. These two eclipses are so much about helping us get closer to our full potential. We never achieve our full potential. That's why Neptune is considered this, this deceptive planet, because when Neptune comes along, we see the full potential. We see the full potential, but we never realize the full potential. And then we say, oh, Neptune deceived me. No. How you want to look at it is, all right, did I experience more potential? Did I experience more of my potential this time than any time before? And if so, you did Neptune just right. All right, he didn't deceive. It's just he shows such a picture, we can't achieve that picture. But if we can take a little more of that picture in than we took in last time, then we're on the right path. We're moving towards our potential. So learn to see Neptune that way. Okay, it's not an evil, pretentious force. It's about getting you closer to your potential, a little bit at a time, yet never realizing your full potential that it charms you with. Okay, so that's what I have to say about this solar eclipse. I don't think it's going to be an easy one. I expect a lot of longing for those people who get hit with this eclipse. The reason I say that, we have also got Venus involved in this eclipse. It's far away, but is in the eclipse sign. But the main reason I say that is because we have Neptune showing potential and Saturn saying no. And, when we have potential and Saturn says no, we can long for that potential. We can long for that greater experience of ourself with whatever that thing is that is coming as an opportunity that is thwarted by Saturn. All right. And if you're in an ending cycle, that Saturn is going to make sure something ends and disappears. So if this eclipse takes something from your life, realize it's taking it because it's not reflective of Indra, which is in the original eclipse. It's not reflective of what's really right for you anymore. And it's also not what's going to be part of you feeling like it was worth living on this planet. Twashta, you're going to die. So you want it living here to be, worth being born for. And if something leaves you during this time, that's the reason. Because in the end, it's not what's going to make your life worth living. Where you go, oh yeah, I'm so glad that was my life. No, you need to get rid of that thing so that you can move towards the thing that you say, I'm so glad that was in my life. It made it all worthwhile. All right. Enough on that. Thank you.